17 years. I raised him, loved him, gave him everything I had, called him my son, until I heard my wife and my sister whispering about a DNA test they switched. Turns out, he's not mine. Not by blood. But no one ever told me. They made that choice for me. And now I have to decide, do I walk away or do I fight to stay his father, even if the truth broke everything I believed in? I wasn't supposed to be home that night. My buddy Tyler's poker night had run long, but I left early. Headache, too many voices, too much bourbon. So I came home quiet, like a man sneaking up on his own life. I parked on the street to avoid waking anyone. The house was dark, except for the kitchen light, that soft yellow glow that always made it feel like someone was still awake, waiting. That night, someone was, and they were talking in whispers. I froze on the porch. I could hear Rachel's voice first, my wife, low and sharp, like she was angry but trying not to show it. Then another voice, softer, nervous. My sister, Madeline. Rachel and Madeline. At this hour, I leaned in closer. The window was cracked just a bit, and what I heard next hit me like a punch to the chest. It's been almost 2 decades, Rach. He doesn't need to know. What good would it do now? Madeline's voice, firm but trembling. He's asking questions again, Rachel said, about the blood type, about the dates. I think he's suspicious. I froze. My blood ran cold. Then destroy the envelope, Madeline hissed. You should have done it years ago. I couldn't. I kept it, in case he ever found the second test. The second test? My chest tightened. I backed away from the window, slowly. Careful. I didn't want them to hear me. My mind raced with every possible scenario. What test? What envelope? What secret could my wife and sister have hidden from me for nearly 20 years? And then a darker question hit me, heavier than all the rest. Was this about Lucas, my son? No. It couldn't be. Lucas was mine. I'd been there for his birth. I held him first. His first word was Dada. He looked like me, didn't he? I moved inside quietly, the way you only do when you're not ready to be seen. Not by people who know your face, and might be wearing a different one behind closed doors. I walked past the living room without being noticed, slipped into the hallway, and stood just outside the kitchen doorway, hidden by the corner. They were still talking. If Ethan finds out, he'll leave you. Rachel, whispering now, not out of fear, but guilt. He'll never forgive me. It was supposed to protect him, Madeline snapped. Protect all of us. It protected you, Rachel shot back. You were the one who... Silence. A beat. Then Rachel whispered, God, what did we do? I couldn't listen anymore. I backed down the hallway and slipped into the guest bathroom. My hands were shaking. 20 years. We'd been married for 15. Lucas was turning 17 in October. This wasn't a new secret. This was an old wound. Someone had kept wrapped in lies and fake smiles. I stared at myself in the mirror, trying to calm my breathing. If I walked back in there right now, asked them what they were talking about, would they lie again? Of course they would. They were good at it. Clearly. I waited until I heard footsteps upstairs before I left the bathroom. Rachel and Madeline were gone. Lights off. Quiet. I sat on the edge of the couch, replaying every moment of the night in my head. The envelope, the test, Lucas. Was he not mine? No. I wouldn't believe it. Couldn't. But I'd heard it. The panic in Rachel's voice, the shame in Madeline's. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. The next morning, Rachel acted like nothing had happened. She handed me coffee, like she always did, kissed my cheek, asked how poker went. I stared at her, really stared. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept, like guilt had kept her awake. Not because she didn't want to tell me, but because she was afraid she finally might have to. I didn't ask her anything. Not yet. Instead, I told her I had a dentist appointment, then drove straight to my parents' house. My mother wasn't home, but my father Walter was, and Walter Cole had a locked study he hadn't let anyone into since 2006. My father had rules, and chief among them, no one goes in the study. That rule had stood since I was a teenager. Back then, I thought it was just because he didn't want me touching his record player or messing with his antique maps. Now, I wondered if it was because some truths were kept behind locked doors. Literally. That morning, I didn't knock. I used the spare key under the brick flower pot, walked straight into the house, and called out, "Dad?" Nothing. His truck was out front, so I knew he was home, probably in the garden, out back where he lost track of time. A perfect opportunity. I walked down the hallway. The study door still had the same brass handle and old-fashioned padlock. I'd seen him unlock it 100 times. Combination lock. The numbers hadn't changed in 20 years. I still remembered the click of each dial. 0825. His wedding anniversary. Click. It opened. The study smelled like old paper and something fainter. Time. The kind of stillness that felt deliberate. Everything was meticulously organized. A walnut desk, dusty leather armchair, books lined like soldiers, and a locked filing cabinet in the corner. That's what I was here for. The filing cabinet had 2 drawers. Top one, mostly old tax records, insurance files, birth certificates, my high school diploma, even Madeline's graduation photo, which surprised me. She hated pictures of herself back then. Bottom drawer, locked. I knelt, no key in sight. But tucked under a desk mat on the main desk, I found a small envelope labeled simply, Private, WC. I opened it. Inside, a key. My stomach turned. I unlocked the bottom drawer. It slid open with a sound that felt louder than it should have. Inside, several neatly labeled manila folders. One of them read, Lucas Cole, 2007. LabCorp DNA paternity test. I didn't breathe. I just stared at it. Shaking, I pulled it out. The seal wasn't broken, still unopened. What kind of father receives a DNA test for his grandson and doesn't open it? Or does, but reseals it? I turned it over, and there it was. A second label, handwritten on the back, duplicate, not to be shared. My blood chilled. I opened it. Inside were 2 printed pages. First page, the legal summary. Second page, the results. Alleged father, Ethan Cole. Child, Lucas Cole. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. I couldn't move. My ears rang. The room tilted. The walls closed in. 0%. Not maybe, not low likelihood. 0. I sank to the floor, the paper trembling in my hands. Lucas wasn't mine. And someone, my sister, my wife, maybe even my father, had known this for 17 years. I sat there for what felt like forever, trying to piece it together. I remembered when Rachel first got pregnant. We were just out of college. It was fast, but we were in love. She was glowing. I was overwhelmed, but ready. Madeline was the one who helped Rachel through the pregnancy more than anyone. She'd been oddly involved, overly so. I thought it was just sisterly bonding. Now it all felt manufactured, a play, with me as the audience, or worse, the prop. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Lucas is asking if you can take him to soccer practice tonight. Let me know. Soccer practice. Like my world hadn't just been set on fire. I stared at the message, then slowly typed back, of course. Tell him I'll be there by 4:30. Because what else could I say? No matter what that piece of paper told me, Lucas was still my son. For now. Until I figured out what the hell really happened. I put the folder back, locked the drawer, left the key exactly where I found it, reset the padlock. If anyone found out I'd been there, they'd know something was wrong. But I needed time. I needed to breathe, to think. And most of all, I needed to find out who had ordered that test and why it had been buried for almost 2 decades. When I got back in the car, I gripped the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turned white. I wasn't ready to confront Rachel yet. And confronting my father, that would take something deeper, something angrier. But there was one person who'd been there since the beginning. The one who sat across from Rachel that night whispering about tests and secrets. My sister, Madeline. Madeline lived 15 minutes away, in a modest little Cape Cod-style house tucked behind a line of maple trees. It was the kind of place that felt like it should be full of peace. White shutters, flower boxes, wind chimes on the porch. But that afternoon, as I pulled into her driveway, all I could see was red. I didn't text, didn't call, I just walked up and knocked. She opened the door, wearing a University of Dayton sweatshirt and holding a mug of tea, clearly surprised. "Ethan? Hey, what's up?" I didn't smile. "Can we talk?" She hesitated for half a second. Just enough. "Of course." She stepped aside, and I walked in. Familiar furniture, the smell of old books, but nothing felt familiar anymore. I sat down in the same chair I'd sat in a dozen holidays before. This time, I didn't touch the coffee table photos, didn't compliment the fall decor. "Where's Owen?" I asked, referring to her husband. "Working late." "Why?" "Because I need you to tell me the truth." Her smile dropped. She slowly set her mug down on the table. "About what?" I stared right at her. "About the DNA test." Her lips parted just slightly. She didn't ask which test. She didn't pretend not to know. That was confirmation enough. "Where did you hear that?" she asked quietly. "You and Rachel were whispering in my kitchen last night. I came home early." She sat down slowly across from me, like she was trying to brace herself for something that had finally arrived. I pulled out the photo of the envelope I'd taken from my dad's study, slid it across the table. Her eyes widened. "You went to Dad's?" "I did. Found the unopened file. The real test." I leaned forward. "It says, 'Lucas isn't mine.'" Madeline closed her eyes for a long moment. "Ethan." "Don't Ethan me. I want the truth. Start talking." She looked down, like she was watching her own shame play out on the floor between us. "It started when Lucas was about 2, she said. You and Rachel were fighting more. You don't remember it, but I do. Dad suspected something. He noticed Lucas's blood type didn't match yours. He didn't say anything to you, but he told me. So you had a DNA test done behind my back?" She nodded slowly. "Rachel begged me not to, but I couldn't not know. I needed to protect you. I thought I was helping." "Helping who?" She didn't answer. I stood up, started pacing. "And when the results came back, when it said I wasn't the father, what then?" Rachel was falling apart. She said it was a mistake, a one-time thing. Some guy from work, a conference. She didn't know she was pregnant until months later, but the dates lined up, and you protected her. Madeline looked up. "I protected you." "No, you didn't. You made a choice. You and Rachel made a deal." "What was it?" She didn't speak. I stared at her until she finally exhaled. "We agreed to get a second test done, privately, one where the sample would come back inconclusive. Rachel paid for it. I helped coordinate it through a contact I had at the clinic I worked at." I blinked. "You doctored a DNA test." "Not exactly. Don't you dare spin this." She winced. "It was meant to buy time, for Rachel to make it right. She loved you. She still does. And you loved Lucas. That's all I ever wanted, for you not to lose what you had. The room went silent. I sat down again, slowly. And Dad? Madeline nodded reluctantly. He knew. He was furious. Told Rachel he'd never look at her the same way. But he also didn't want the family to break. So he agreed to lock it away. Said if you ever asked directly, then the truth would come out. I laughed, bitter and hollow. So everyone made that decision for me, for my life, for my son. Madeline's voice cracked. Ethan, I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're just sorry I found out. I stood. She didn't try to stop me. At the door, I turned back. You think you protected me? You didn't. You robbed me of the right to choose how to live my own damn life. What will you do now? I didn't know. I just knew I couldn't unknow what I now knew. I don't have that answer, but I'm sure as hell not going to keep living someone else's lie. And I walked out. As I sat in my car, gripping the wheel, a single thought circled my mind like a vulture. What if Rachel didn't just lie once? What if this was just the beginning? I drove home in silence. No music, no radio. Just the hollow thump of my heart and the rhythmic pulse of windshield wipers dragging across a clear sky. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But a quiet kind of rage had rooted itself deep in my chest. Because the woman I built a life with, the sister I trusted with my soul, they had buried the truth under 17 years of normal. And now that normal felt fake, like every birthday I spent with Lucas, every bedtime story, every time I looked at him and thought, he's mine. Maybe he never was. I pulled into the driveway and saw Lucas shooting hoops in the front yard. He waved when he saw me. Big smile. Hey, Dad, can we hit up Chick-fil-A after practice? I swallowed hard. That word, Dad, hit different now, but it still pulled something out of me, something warm and fierce and real, because no test in the world could erase the fact that I had raised this boy, held him through fevers, cheered him through championships, taught him how to drive, badly. He was mine, even if he wasn't mine. But I didn't know how to carry both truths at once. Rachel was in the kitchen when we came in. She smiled when she saw us. It made my stomach turn. That smile had lied to me for years. Hey guys, dinner's almost ready. Lucas, go wash up. He dropped his bag and disappeared down the hall. I stood there, watching her stir a pot of sauce like everything was normal. It made my skin crawl. We need to talk, I said flatly. She didn't look up. Okay, later tonight? No, now. She finally met my eyes, and she knew. We sat at the table, no food, no wine, just two people on the edge of a cliff with nothing but silence between them. I know about the test, I said. She didn't pretend, didn't blink, just let out a slow, shaking breath. Which one? The real one. She looked down. I never wanted to lie to you, Ethan. But you did. For 17 years. It wasn't supposed to last this long. That was almost worse, like the lie had grown bigger than she ever intended, and then just kept living on its own. Who was he? I asked. The real father? She hesitated. His name was Marcus. We worked together. It was a stupid, brief mistake. We were fighting back then. I was scared, confused. So you slept with someone else. It wasn't love, Ethan. It wasn't anything. I realized it was wrong immediately. I ended it, then found out I was pregnant. And you let me believe he was mine. Because by then, I wanted him to be. She said it like it was an act of love. To me, it felt like theft. Why didn't you tell me when you found out? Because I saw the way you looked at him, the way you loved him, and I thought, Why ruin that? Why ruin you? It wasn't your decision to make. Tears welled in her eyes. I know. Madeline, she helped you. She nodded. She wanted to protect you. She knew how much you wanted to be a father. So the two of you decided to gaslight me into fatherhood. Don't say it like that. How should I say it? She looked like she was unraveling right in front of me. You don't understand, she said. You think it was all manipulation. But I've watched you raise Lucas with more love than most biological fathers ever give. You gave him a better life than Marcus ever could have. You are his father, Ethan. That's not the point. You denied me the choice. That was the wound that hurt most. Not just that she lied, but that she decided, unilaterally, that I couldn't handle the truth, like I was some fragile fool. Where is Marcus now? She shook her head. He moved away, years ago. I haven't spoken to him in over a decade. He doesn't know about the test. As far as I know, he doesn't even know Lucas exists. That was supposed to be comforting. It wasn't. I leaned back, feeling like the walls were closing in. Then I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Does Lucas know? She looked horrified. No. God, no. I'd never tell him. But you're okay with me finding out this way? Silence. What do you want to do? She asked. I stared at her. I don't know yet, but I'm not just going to pretend this didn't happen. That night, I sat in Lucas's room after he fell asleep. He looked peaceful, headphones still in, a YouTube video paused on his phone. I looked at his face, still mine, in all the ways that counted. But the DNA between us, a lie. I pulled the blanket over him, turned off the lamp, and whispered, I don't care what the paper says. I'm still your dad, but one day, you deserve to know the truth. Because unlike everyone else in his life, I wouldn't keep lying. After everything Rachel admitted, you'd think I'd heard the worst. But I couldn't shake what she said that night. The thing that stuck in my mind like a splinter. I thought he'd never find the second test. Second test? What second test? The one I found in my dad's study? No, that had been labeled duplicate, which meant there had been another. One I never saw. One I was never supposed to. And suddenly, I realized something. Someone else out there knew even more than Rachel. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, feeling her breathe next to me, like a stranger wearing my wife's skin. At 6:42 a.m., I got out of bed, threw on a sweatshirt, and drove straight to the place where this all started, LabCorp Diagnostics. It was an hour away, and closed until 8. I sat in the parking lot like a ghost, trying to piece together 17 years of silence into something that made sense. By 8:05, I was at the front desk asking for records. The receptionist smiled politely until I asked about a DNA test from 2007. Then her smile tightened. I'm sorry, we can't release results without a request from a primary party or court order. I'm the father. She raised a brow. You're the alleged father. The word hit like a slap. I was the one raising him. That should count for something. She pursed her lips. Do you have ID? I handed it over. She typed for a while, then frowned. You're not listed as the requesting party on the 2007 test. That was submitted by a Madeline Cole. My stomach dropped. Madeline hadn't just known about the test. She ordered it. Is there a record of a second submission or a retest? There is a second entry, yes. Different case number. It was submitted about 5 months after the first. Same child name, different contact listed. Rachel Cole. That's my wife. I'm afraid I still can't give you the full contents, but I can confirm the sample was inconclusive due to contamination. Contamination. Right. The kind of contamination that happens when someone deliberately swaps samples. I drove straight to Madeline's house again. She opened the door, saw me, and sighed, like she knew this was coming. Let me guess. LabCorp? I walked right past her. You told me about the first test. You didn't mention a second. Because I didn't want you chasing ghosts. Try again. Because Rachel begged me not to. I turned, furious. Did you help her fake it? No, but I didn't stop her either. She sat down. She looked exhausted. The first test was real. The result was real. But Rachel couldn't live with it. So she came up with a plan. Submit a second test. This time, with your sample switched. Swap Lucas's with another child's. Make the results inconclusive. Just enough doubt to shut it all down. And you let her? I didn't think you could handle the truth. That again. That damn line. You and Rachel think I'm some fragile doll who'd fall apart if I knew my life was a lie. You love that kid like your own. What would have been the point in destroying it all? Because truth matters. She stood up. We were scared, Ethan. All of us. And no one wanted to be the one to break your heart. So we waited. And then it became too late. Lucas was growing up. He called you Dad. He loved you. And you thought I couldn't love him if he wasn't mine? She looked down. We didn't want to find out. I left before I said something I'd regret. But as I drove home, my anger gave way to something else. A plan. I couldn't keep playing detective in a story everyone else already knew the ending to. If I wanted the truth now, the whole truth, I'd have to do something Rachel, Madeline, and even my own father never had the courage to do. Tell Lucas, and ask if he wanted the truth too. I didn't want to go home, but I had to. There was no more pretending, no more rationalizing, or telling myself, it's probably not as bad as it sounds. It was worse. By the time I walked through the front door, Rachel was sitting at the dining table with her laptop open, some work email half finished and forgotten. Her eyes shot up the second she saw me. Ethan, she said carefully, you're home early. We need to talk, both of you, now. Both? Madeline's coming, don't lie. You know why. Her eyes dropped. She closed the laptop and nodded. There was no more denial left in her. Madeline arrived 20 minutes later. She looked exhausted, guilty, like someone summoned to a courtroom she thought she'd never be dragged into. I stood in the middle of the living room. They sat across from me. No one spoke at first. So, I said, here we are, the two people I trusted most. Both of you made a pact behind my back. Rachel opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. No interruptions. I'm going to say everything. And then maybe I'll let you speak. They both nodded. Quiet. I know about both tests, I began. The one Dad kept locked away, and the one you both rigged. I turned to Rachel. You swapped the samples, had a second test come back inconclusive to bury the truth. She didn't deny it. I know you both sat in this room for years, pretending like nothing happened, watching me raise Lucas like he was mine. And when I asked questions, you gaslighted me, lied, deflected. We thought we were protecting you, Madeline said softly. No, I snapped. You were protecting yourselves. Ethan, Rachel started, let me finish. I was shaking now, but it wasn't fear. It was fury laced with heartbreak. Every time I looked at Lucas and thought, he's mine. I was living your lie. You robbed me of the right to choose, to process, to decide whether I could live with it. You decided for me. Silence. And then finally, Rachel spoke. Her voice was raw, small. I was scared. I thought if I told you, You'd leave, and I couldn't raise Lucas alone. I didn't want him to grow up without you. You let me believe he was my son. You are his father, Ethan, in every way that matters. But you never gave me the choice to be. Madeline leaned forward now. You were falling apart back then. You don't remember it, but I do. Mum was sick. Dad was barely around. You were working 2 jobs. I watched you drown. And when Rachel came to me crying, I made a call. A call to do what exactly? Lie? Forge a new reality for me? A call to save you from losing the one thing that kept you going. That stopped me. I hated that part of me still remembered that time. How dark it was. How Lucas had been the only thing I clung to. But still, that didn't make it right. What about Marcus? I asked, turning to Rachel. The actual father. I haven't spoken to him since Lucas was a baby. He doesn't know. He never will. He has a right to. She flinched. And Lucas, I said. What about his right to know who he really is? Please, she said, her voice cracking. Please don't tell him. Not yet. He's almost a man, Rachel. He's still our son. He loves you. You're the only dad he's ever known. Don't destroy that. I sat down slowly, the weight of it all pressing into my chest like stone. I'm going to tell him, I said quietly. Not tonight, but soon. He deserves the truth. Rachel broke down crying. If I lose you, I lose everything. You should have thought about that 17 years ago. She didn't argue. For the first time, maybe ever, she had no defense left. Madeline stood to leave. She turned to me at the door. I know I failed you, she said. But for what it's worth, I thought I was saving your life. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. I just closed the door behind her. Later that night, Rachel came into our bedroom. She didn't get into bed. She sat on the edge, facing the window. Do you hate me? She asked. No. She turned, surprised. But I don't trust you. And that was worse. As I lay in the dark, I thought about Lucas, how he'd smile when he beat me at video games, how he called me Pop when he wanted something, how he looked up to me. Would he still, once he knew? Would I? Would I still see the same kid? Or a stranger that wore my last name like a borrowed coat? I always believed my family was built on tough love. My father, Walter Cole, wasn't the kind of man who hugged often or said, I'm proud of you. But I thought I could count on him for one thing. Honesty. Now, I wasn't so sure. After everything I'd uncovered, it felt like every person I loved had been in on the same lie. And he might have been the one who set the whole thing in motion. I needed to hear it from him. So I drove over to my parents' house the next morning, alone, tired, numb. My mother, Diane, was out with her church group. Just me and Dad in the house, just like I wanted. He was sitting on the back porch, sipping black coffee from his old Ohio State mug, eyes fixed on the bird feeder like he didn't already sense a storm behind him. Morning, son. We need to talk. His eyes didn't shift. I figured. I sat down across from him. He didn't look at me, but he didn't walk away either. That was his way of saying he was listening. I know about the test, the real one. He nodded once. No surprise on his face. You kept it locked in your study. For good reason. What reason would justify hiding the truth from your own son? He looked at me now, hard. Because you weren't ready for it. There it was again. That phrase I was beginning to despise. Who gave you the right to decide that? You were 22, overwhelmed. Your mother was recovering from surgery. Rachel was already fragile. And Lucas needed a father. He didn't need me if I wasn't actually. He did. Maybe more than you realize. I shook my head. So you just sat there, year after year, letting me raise a child you knew wasn't mine. You think I didn't wrestle with that? You think I didn't sit up at night, wondering if I should tell you? He took a long sip from his mug. I kept that test because part of me thought, one day, you'd be strong enough to know. And when that day came, I'd hand it to you, let you decide what came next. So why didn't you? Because it never felt like the right time. I let that sit for a moment. All those birthdays, all those Thanksgivings, all those moments where he watched me play father to a boy who might have been another man's son. Did Mom know? He nodded slowly. Not right away, but eventually, yes. I blinked. So she lied too. She said if Lucas was yours in every way that mattered, then biology didn't change that. And you agreed. I didn't disagree. He looked out over the yard, watching a squirrel leap from one tree to the next. You ever think maybe we were wrong? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I loved him, Dad. You still do. Yeah, I do. Then nothing else matters. I slammed my hand on the porch railing. Of course it matters, because I was never given the chance to make that choice myself. I could have loved him knowing the truth. I could have forgiven Rachel. I could have found a way to move forward. But I wasn't even allowed that. Walter looked up, eyes heavier than I'd ever seen them. We thought we were protecting you. You were protecting yourselves from the fallout, from the guilt, from the damn responsibility of what that truth would cost. Silence, just the rustle of wind through the trees. Lucas is a good kid, he said finally. He's kind, smart, looks up to you. I know. And if he finds out now, what will it do to him? That was the part I still didn't know. I'd been so focused on how betrayed I felt, I hadn't let myself imagine what this would do to Lucas. To realize his entire foundation was built on a lie his whole family protected. You think I should lie to him too? I asked. I think you should ask yourself if the truth will heal or harm. And if it does both? Walter leaned back. Then welcome to fatherhood. I left not long after that, more confused than when I arrived, because beneath all my anger, there was a truth I didn't want to admit. They hadn't done this out of malice. They'd done it because they were scared. Scared I'd break. Scared I'd run. Scared the family would collapse. And maybe, just maybe, they were scared they'd lose him too. That night, I sat outside Lucas's room, listening to him talk to his friends online, joking, laughing, planning weekend soccer games, and talking about college applications. He sounded normal, happy. And I realized something painful. Telling him the truth might destroy that. But not telling him, that would destroy me. It's a strange thing, preparing to shatter someone's world. I stood outside Lucas's bedroom door with a knot in my chest so tight I could barely breathe. Behind that door was a teenager who trusted me completely. He looked up to me, believed in me, thought I was his hero, and I was about to tell him something that might tear all of that down, maybe even tear us down. But I couldn't keep living this half-life, couldn't keep pretending everything was okay when the foundations were built on lies. The peace in this house came at a price, and that price had always been me. I knocked gently. Yeah? Came his voice. Hey, bud, can I come in for a sec? Sure. He was lying on his bed, AirPods out, eyes glued to his phone screen. He looked up when he saw my face, frowned. Everything okay? I sat on the edge of his bed. My hands trembled. We need to talk, something important, and it's going to be hard to hear. He paused, put the phone down, sat up straighter. Am I in trouble? No, not at all. This is about me and your mum, and something you deserve to know. He blinked, uneasy now. Okay, I took a breath. No going back now. Lucas, I love you. You know that, right? Yeah, of course. You're my son, no matter what. Nothing will ever change that. Okay, his voice wavered. You're scaring me. I'm not trying to, but I have to tell you the truth. And then I said it. Softly. Clearly. A long time ago, before you were born, your mum and I had a rough patch. She made a mistake. She was with someone else. He stared at me. Frozen. What? She didn't know she was pregnant right away. And when she found out, we both believed, or wanted to believe, that I was your father. I swallowed hard. But years later, there was a test done. And it turns out I'm not your biological dad. Silence. Like time had stopped. What do you mean? He whispered. It means I didn't create you. Not in the genetic sense, but I raised you. I fed you. I stayed up with you when you were sick. I taught you how to ride a bike. I'm the man who's been there every single day. So who's my real dad? His name was Marcus. Your mum hasn't spoken to him in years. He doesn't know about you. And you knew? All this time? No, I said quickly. I just found out. A few days ago. He looked down, shoulders tense, hands curled into fists. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve to know the truth about where you come from, about your story. It's your right, not something anyone should have kept from you. He nodded slowly, but his face was pale. So, are you still my dad? That broke me. Tears filled my eyes. I took his hand. Always. No matter what. There's no test that can take that away. You're my son. I don't care what any paper says. He didn't speak for a long time. Eventually, he got up and walked to the window. He stood there, quiet, for what felt like forever. Then, do I get to meet him? Marcus? The question hit harder than I expected. If that's something you want, I'll do everything I can to make it happen. But I'll be honest, I don't know where he is, and I don't know what kind of person he is. Okay, but I want to be part of that search. If you go down that road, I want to walk it with you. He turned. His face wasn't angry, just confused, tired. I need some time, Dad. That word again. Dad. Still mine. For now. I left his room quietly. Rachel was in the hallway. She'd clearly been listening. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't speak. Just looked at me like she didn't know who I was anymore. And maybe I didn't either. That night, I sat on the porch alone. The air was still. The stars blurred above me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't pretending. The truth was out. And whatever happened next, whether Lucas forgave us, whether he wanted to find Marcus, whether he drifted from me or stayed close, it would be real. Not built on shame. Not manufactured in whispers. Just real. Lucas didn't come down for breakfast the next morning. Didn't text. Didn't speak. His door was locked. I gave him space, even though every part of me wanted to burst in and explain everything all over again. Like the truth could somehow hurt less if I just said it better. Rachel sat across from me at the kitchen table, stirring her coffee without drinking it. Did he take it okay? She asked softly. What does okay even mean? She didn't answer. The silence between us was unbearable. It wasn't just tension. It was distance. The kind of distance built over years, layer by layer, until it finally cracks and everything underneath pours out. You could have told me, I said. You could have told him. Rachel set her mug down. Her hands were shaking. I thought I was doing the right thing. You keep saying that, but it's just an excuse, Rachel. An excuse to avoid owning what you did. She flinched. So what now? She whispered. You hate me? No, I said. I don't hate you. She looked up, surprised. But I don't know if I can ever love you the same way again. Later that afternoon, Madeline showed up uninvited. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her face was tight, jaw clenched. You told him, she said. Not a question. I did. And? He's processing. She nodded, then looked at Rachel. He deserves to meet Marcus. Rachel's eyes flared. Absolutely not. That man is not part of this. He's part of Lucas, I said quietly, whether we like it or not. You don't even know where he is. But you do. Rachel froze. I could see it in her face. That flicker of recognition, of panic. Rachel, I said, voice low, where is he? You can't seriously be thinking of contacting him. I'm not. Lucas might be. She stood up, backing away like the room had suddenly become too small. He doesn't need Marcus. He has you. But if you lied about me, how can we trust you didn't lie about him too? Rachel collapsed into a chair, trembling. I saw Marcus at a conference last year, she said. He lives in Chicago now. He doesn't know about Lucas. He never did. I never told him. Why? Because he was a mistake. He was married at the time. It was just a dumb, drunken night. He would have never wanted a child. That wasn't your decision to make, Madeline said quietly. Rachel shot her a look. Don't act innocent. You were right there with me, helping cover everything up. Madeline's face twisted in guilt and resentment. I regret it every day. Oh, please. You were always better at keeping secrets than I was. Because I didn't marry mine. The three of us were shouting now, years of buried guilt and betrayal exploding like a dam giving way. You think I haven't paid for it? Rachel cried. Every birthday, every time he said, I love you, Mum, I felt it. The guilt, the fear. It never left. And yet you let me live it, I said. Day after day, like nothing was wrong. Because I wanted it to be real. Her voice cracked. I wanted our family to be real. The door to Lucas's room opened upstairs. We all stopped. A few seconds later, he came down the stairs slowly. His face was unreadable. He looked at all of us, one by one. Then he said, I want to meet him. The room went dead quiet. Lucas, Rachel said, stepping toward him, you don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do. I want to know where I come from, who he is, what he's like, and I want you, he turned to me, to come with me when I do. I nodded. My voice was tight, but steady. Okay. And after that, he added, I want to decide what kind of future I have. I don't want any more lies from anyone. He didn't wait for our response. He just turned and walked back upstairs. Madeline stood. Her voice shook. He's braver than any of us were. Rachel sank back into her chair, defeated. I didn't say a word, because there was nothing left to say. The house had finally collapsed under the weight of its secrets, and only the truth stood standing. 1 week later, we were standing outside a coffee shop in Chicago. Lucas at my side, nervous, silent. We hadn't said much on the drive. He had his headphones in most of the time, but I could tell his mind was racing the whole way here. I didn't try to fill the silence. Some journeys are meant to be quiet. Marcus showed up 5 minutes late. He looked older than I remembered from the one picture Rachel still had. Grayer at the temples, a little thicker around the middle. Business casual, conservative. He held himself with the stiffness of someone who had no idea what he was walking into. Until he saw Lucas. His eyes widened and his mouth parted just slightly. He looked at me next, confused. Can I help you guys? I stepped forward. Are you Marcus Willis? Yes. This is Lucas. Pause. Your son. To his credit, Marcus didn't deny it. Didn't get defensive. He asked to sit down. We talked. Lucas asked questions, carefully at first, then with more confidence as the conversation opened up. Marcus explained that he had no idea, said if he'd known, he would have stepped up, that he wasn't proud of how he'd handled that part of his life, or the marriage he'd been in at the time. He offered no excuses, just a quiet willingness to listen. After an hour, Lucas excused himself and went outside to get some air. Marcus turned to me. "You raised him?" "Every day for 17 years. He's a good kid." "Yeah, he is." He looked down. "You probably hate me. I don't know you well enough to hate you, but I know this. Whatever happens next is Lucas's choice." Marcus nodded slowly. "Understood." We left that coffee shop with no promises, no tears, just clarity. Lucas was quiet on the drive back. Halfway home, he finally spoke. "He seems okay." "Yeah," I said. "He does. But he's not you." That hit deep. I turned and looked at him. "You don't have to pick sides, you know. You can know him and still keep me." "I know." Pause. "But I already picked a long time ago. I just didn't know the whole story." Things didn't magically go back to normal after that. There were awkward silences, lingering glances, long talks late at night. Rachel and I began therapy. Madeline kept her distance for a while, but eventually reached out. Apologized again. This time without excuses. Lucas texted Marcus once or twice. They talked on the phone a couple of times. Nothing heavy, just beginnings. I didn't ask for details, because I wasn't afraid anymore. I stood in Lucas's doorway a few nights later as he packed for a weekend trip with friends. He looked up and smiled. "You good?" I asked. "I think so. If you ever need anything." "I know." He paused. "Thanks for telling me the truth. Thanks for not hating me for waiting so long." He walked over and hugged me. "I love you, Dad." I hugged him back, tighter than I ever had before. "I love you too, son. You can live a whole life in a lie and not realize it until it's too late. But sometimes, if you're lucky, telling the truth doesn't just break things. It rebuilds them. Stronger, clearer, real." I don't know what kind of man Marcus was, but I know the kind of man I choose to be. And I choose to live with the truth, no matter how late it comes. Because at the end of it all, I'd rather lose a lie than lose the chance to be honest with the people I love.